Coming up on the show, we're looking back 1 year since the tragic mass shooting at Apalachee High School, the cause for change, the time to heal. Also, new changes are coming to TSA checkpoints, and they could reshape how families and service members move through the nation's airports, including right here in Atlanta. And cards frozen, call centers jammed, but that was only part of the story. Find out what a new 11Alive investigation discovered about the cyber attack that locked the out-SNAP benefits for Georgia's families. This is The Take. Let's go. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines. We look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their take on today's top stories, and we try to have just a little bit of fun as well. Well, it was 1 year ago today when tragedy shattered Apalachee High School. On that day, gunfire erupted in the halls of the Barrow County campus. 4 people, 2 14-year-old students, 2 teachers were killed. 9 others were injured in what became the deadliest school shooting in Georgia's history. A grand jury has charged the alleged gunman, 15-year-old Colt Gray, with 55 counts ranging from murder to aggravated assault and cruelty to children. Prosecutors plan to try him as an adult. His father, Colin Gray, was indicted on 29 counts, including second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, and cruelty to children. In April, Colin Gray successfully had his trial moved, citing substantial pre-trial publicity. And this morning, we learned that he has received a new date for the start of his trial that is now set to begin February 9th. 1 year later, a grassroots movement is turning grief into action. We talked with Layla Renee Contreras, lead organizer and co-founder of Change for Chee. She was a student at Apalachee, her sister currently a senior, and her mother a substitute teacher at the school. We asked Layla what one emotion still stays with her the most since that tragic day.
A lot of fear, I believe, and just unimaginable grief.
Yeah. How are the families doing?
Well, it still feels very fresh. Some are quiet, some are vocal, but a lot of them are still showing up, and that brings comfort, to the community, I feel. And but they're not just showing up with words, they're just showing up with presence and purpose as well.
Yeah. Talk to me about the anniversary that's coming up. What's happening on the day of that anniversary to remember the lives that were lost?
Yes, so there's a full day of remembrance across Barrow County. Students are participating in a service day named Day of Prevailing Love. Chris Singleton is also speaking that morning or that afternoon with the children. A group of us are going to be at the Georgia State Capitol with lawmakers to commemorate the day and the lives of, Christian, Mason, Christina, and Richard. And then pastors later that evening, pastors and politicians are gathering at the school flagpole for a candlelight vigil. And then the next day, my organization, Change for Chee, we're having a student-led and community-led and family-led vigil and canned food drive in honor of the 4 that we lost that day at the local Home Depot in Winder.
Yeah. Talk to me about Change for Chee. What are you guys advocating for in particular?
Well, we want safer schools. Above all else, it should be about the children. It should be about protecting, our next generation of leaders and community members, right? We're asking that lawmakers and everyone in the communities invest in these children, because no community has ever faulted for investing in their future.
Yeah. Layla, have you seen any change since a year ago? Have you seen much change in the school since then?
We have been advocating and going to each Board of Education meeting. We've been going to the state capitol. This past January, we got AI weapons and metal detection systems, as well as student IDs for our students. So we have also bridged some communication gaps between our school system and the families. I think clearer communication between everyone will, rebuild some of that trust that was lost.
Yeah. You guys are advocating for that change. Is that what the families want out of this tragedy?
Yes, they do not want their family members to have died in vain. they're asking for protection for the kids and the teachers. They want safer schools. They want stronger leadership and accountability. And, that doesn't require another tragedy for it to happen, right? They want elected officials to listen and not make this political. And they want better communication between the institutions, especially when a student makes a threat. They want irresponsible gun owners to be held accountable in the event their child accesses one and does harm to others or themselves. They just want to make sure that their babies are safe at school, as they should be.
Yeah. Layla, you poured yourself into this, a lot of yourself into this. Talk to me about how this journey has changed you personally.
I never would have imagined me jumping into this fight. And you don't think it will ever happen in your community until it does. And my sister was there that day, as well as my mother. And when I was out there on the football field, I just saw that something needs to happen so this doesn't happen to another community. It changes me in the way that we're rebuilding a community because our whole community was shaken to its core. And the students definitely give me hope. And it's the ones that were able to keep raising their voices. It looks like families who still show up with full of hearts, and even though they're changed, they're still hurting, and they have the same fire and the same love and the same determination that keeps me going. So,
let me ask you this last question for you. How do you hope this community and really the whole state of Georgia will look back on your group's work 10 to 5 years from now?
I hope that our lived experiences are enough to change the minds and hearts of those who are responsible for policy changes. I think that people have more compassion for the work that we've done and for our community, because it will never be forgotten here. And I hope they listen to us and these students who are going through college and moving on. But we don't want to be living in the rear view mirror all the time, but this is something that does stay with us.
All right. Layla, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for all that you're doing for our community.
Thank you.
All right. Stay with 11 Live Plus for complete coverage all day from Apalachee. We're going to have Ron Jones. He will be anchoring our coverage there later on today from the school. And we're going to provide an extensive look at what's taking place there all day long and how the community is remaining strong as it moves forward. That's today right here on 11 Live Plus. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. Robert Kennedy Jr., head of the nation's health department, is in the hot seat on Capitol Hill today. He's expected to testify in front of a Senate committee amid upheaval about the CDC and the wave of questions about vaccines. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, hello, first of all. And what do we expect to come out of today's appearance?
Good morning, Chesley. Yeah, this is really going to be a heated one, I anticipate, and we're less than an hour away from the anticipated start of this Capitol Hill grilling. In the lead up to today, Democrats compiled an outline of the secretary's promises during his confirmation that they say he's now broken, that he has not lived up to. And Democrats are not alone. There have been a number of Republicans that have voiced concern about just the deep turmoil that we've seen at the Centers for Disease Control, the nation's top public health agency. And among them, the Senate's top Republican, John Thune, questioned the firing of Centers for Disease Control Director Dr. Susan Menares just 1 month into the job after she'd been confirmed by the Senate. John Thune called for stability, and he added that supporting vaccines should not be disqualifying for the new CDC head amid an overhaul to the nation's vaccine approval process and new restrictions on COVID shots that pushed other top CDC officials to resign in protest. So all of those issues really boiling up right now, and all expected to be the kinds of things that senators in both parties are going to be grilling Secretary Kennedy about in, again, a little bit less than an hour. He is a longtime vaccine skeptic. He has said that the CDC made missteps during the pandemic and has defended the shakeup at the agency. He's going to do that again today.
Yeah, you mentioned it's bipartisan. You mentioned that, and in this uproar on both sides, you'll get questions from both. You reported that one senator that we need to watch is Republican Bill Cassidy.
Yeah, he's a very interesting figure in all of this, in no small part because he's a physician himself. He voiced concern about Secretary Kennedy's vaccine skepticism throughout his confirmation hearing. It took a while to get him to agree to confirm Secretary Kennedy, and at the time he said that he'd secured promises from Kennedy on a number of issues, specifically about the vaccine approval process. And in the wake of that, as we've started to see the changes that have happened, including firing a number of people from a key vaccine advisory committee, Senator Cassidy has called for oversight of all this turnover at the CDC, and he chairs the health committee that would be in charge of oversight there. And he's raised questions about the scientific process, specifically in that key vaccine advisory committee. He's asked to delay the next meeting until some of this can be sorted out. So the way that he approaches Secretary Kennedy today will be interesting. In the lead up the last couple of days, he's sort of been hands off and has said, we're just trying to get to the truth. We shouldn't presuppose anything. And he's going to go in with a battery of questions along with his colleagues.
All right, we're waiting for that. This comes to states are now staking out their own rules. Talk about Florida announcing it would eliminate all state vaccine mandates, including in schools.
Yeah, this is another major development, making Florida the first to get rid of vaccine mandates. You know, talk about if you have kids who may have just started school within the past few weeks, you have to have a certain number of vaccines that you agree that they're going to take on. I mean, polio, measles, all kinds of things. And that's not going to be the case in Florida anymore. And there's already discussion that Texas might follow suit. We've heard concerns from a number of people in the medical community, specifically pointing to this year's measles outbreak in Texas that led to the deaths of 2 unvaccinated school-aged children. And there are those saying the more unvaccinated kids you have in schools, the more the likelihood is that we could see that kind of thing. Yeah. Blue states, California, Washington, and Oregon are now planning to coordinate their vaccine recommendations separate from the federal government. They say they think there's too much ideology there. Of course, HHS rejects that, but it just points to the fractured state of public health, Chesley.
All right, Alice, thanks so much for your insight today. Appreciate it. All right, plenty more stories for you coming up. This is The Take. We'll be back right after this. Last year's tragedy at Apalachee High School shook Bartow County and the community of Winder to its core. But sadly, it's a pain all too familiar for the people in Newtown, Connecticut. It was there in 2012 where 20 children and 6 educators were killed in an attack at Sandy Hook Elementary School. It remains the 4th deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. From that horror formed a group working to train students and teachers to spot warning signs and prevent the next school shooting. With us now is Nicole Hockley, co-founder and co-CEO of Sandy Hook Promise. Her son Dylan was killed at Sandy Hook, that tragedy there. Nicole, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you for having me, Chesley.
And we appreciate you coming here. We know that this is a hard thing to talk about, but your strength really encouraging us here in Georgia. Take us back, if you can, the day in 2012 and how that all played out.
Well, that was a day, unfortunately, that I relive every day in my memories and in my nightmares of finding out that, both of my children were at Sandy Hook School the day of the shooting. My eldest survived, and my youngest, Dylan, was killed in his first grade classroom. And that shock and denial existed for quite a long time, and I'm still moving through the grief and the trauma after. But this is part of why I helped launch Sandy Hook Promise, to take all of my anger and pain and channel it into love and change to prevent these tragedies from happening elsewhere.
Talk to us about that mission, Sandy Hook Promise, right? Obviously the memory of your son guiding you through this. Talk to us about it.
Well, we're on a mission to end school shootings and keep all kids safe in their schools, homes, and communities. And the way that we do that is by training students and the adults around them how to recognize warning signs, but more importantly, how to take them seriously and act immediately and say something to a trusted adult or an anonymous reporting system. And we know that this model works. We have had thousands of mental health interventions, thousands of averted violence, thousands of averted suicides, and at current count, 18 planned school shootings that have been prevented as a direct result of our training.
Yeah, can't imagine how long it takes to even get over something like this. You've heard of what happened here at Apalachee High School. What do you say to the folks there who this is really still fresh on their minds?
Well, it will be fresh forever. I mean, the ripple effects of trauma don't go away. You continue to move through it. And as they approach the first year remembrance, this is probably a time of very heightened anxiety and concern. The firsts are always hardest: the first birthday miss, the first holiday seasons miss, the first remembrance. I always know that my emotions build up significantly and beforehand, and I find it harder to function. So my heart is with them right now, and I just want them to know that they will get through this day. There's a lot of resources and support available to them. We're always here to help in any way that we can, but it is just about continuing the journey forward, honoring the lives that were lost, and continuing to think about the lives you have going forward as well.
You mentioned that you trained students and teachers nationwide. How does that work in practice, and what kind of change do you see? Talk to me about that work in practice and what kind of change you see right there on the grounds.
Well, like this last year alone, we've trained over 8.9 million kids in their schools, and they've participated in our programs that's teaching them how to create connection within classrooms, because a lot of trauma and violence comes from feeling disconnected. So starting with hello, reaching out and being inclusive to each other, but also then really how to recognize warning signs of someone who could be escalating down a pathway of violence towards, self-harm or harm to others, and how to then take that seriously. We do a lot of role modeling, we do a lot of training, and then we work with the school team and local law enforcement to ensure that there is action that can be done once the training has taken place. And this really works. We also really work hard on youth-led student clubs so that, students have agency and a voice in what safety means to them and what they want to see in their school. So that's kind of what we do. And then we back everything else up with our policy. And we were super proud to work with Georgia's legislation on HB 268 and really providing mandates for suicide prevention training, violence prevention training, anonymous reporting systems, and youth-led clubs, all the things that we do so well. And we just stand ready to partner with any school district and provide our no-cost programs so that they can help prevent future tragedies as well.
Yeah, I got about 20 seconds with you here. Talk to me about the lessons that you could talk to the people here in Georgia about what you learned and others have endured in Sandy Hook.
I've definitely learned that we need to recognize the warning signs and take action. We can't just ignore them. We need to provide law enforcement with more tools on how to deal with someone who is not breaking the law yet, but is showing signs of crisis. And I also need to know that we need to have compassion all the time with each other and with ourselves as we continue to navigate forward.
Nicole Hockley, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your insight. Really appreciate what you're doing for our communities across the nation.
Thank you.
All right. All right, later on here on The Take, we're going to take a look, we're going to talk with a nationally known psychologist and how those in school, in the school that day, and their families best can cope with that pain. You're watching The Take. We're back right after this. Welcome back to the show. Checking on the tarmac in Hartsfield-Jackson. Around 280,000 travelers will be making their way through the concourse today. TSA is now looking to help family members with service members and frequent flyers to get through the airport just a little bit quicker. Here to explain those new perks is TSA Acting Deputy Administrator Adam Stahl. Adam, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right. A lot of this centers around TSA PreCheck, right? For people who have not yet enrolled in TSA PreCheck, why is right now the right time?
Yeah, there is significant value proposition in TSA PreCheck. Folks ask about, is it still worth it with ending the shoes off policy? And we strongly believe there is. We're very much committed to the brand. There's significant benefit, reduction in time at checkpoint itself on average. About reduction in 50% time at the airport going through screening. Additionally, less evasive travel experience. You don't have to necessarily remove your jacket or your belt. But we're also, again, continuing to look at other benefits that we're going to roll out in the coming months. So there is still significant value in the PreCheck brand and enrolling. And we encourage individuals to enroll. And if you have more questions or concerns or how to enroll, please go on TSA.gov for more information.
Can you give us some of those new perks? Break down some of those new perks that's coming?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to tease anything out, but we're taking a look at a variety of options. We've been charged by the Secretary of Homeland Security to really, again, take an aggressive look at ways we can, again, improve the seamlessness of travel for both PreCheck, but also standard passengers for every American, while also not compromising security in the slightest. And so that's what we're going to do. Of course, there's been a lot of conversation about liquids and other kind of benefits. And so we don't want to kind of signal too much on the show, but we are focused, again, on continuing to bolster that brand in the coming weeks and months.
Okay, all right. So now, is it? I know you can't tease it, but is it more toward convenience or security time, the time that you wait, or both?
I think we're hoping both always. I think every single day we're focused again on both reducing time at the checkpoint, but also without again at the slightest impacting security. Security is always at the forefront of our minds, at the Secretary's mind. Again, we're focused on that. We'll also reducing wait times at the airports across the country, and so that's always the focus. Pre-check and standard population.
You're choosing Atlanta as one of the places to roll this out. Why Atlanta?
Yeah, absolutely. So Atlanta is, of course, in close proximity military land-wise to large military installations, and is frequent. Has a lot of frequent travel for military members, and so that was really the focus, and we really wanted to be careful and deliberate about where we roll this out. And it's been hugely positive so far, and we've really received rave reviews, including the military lanes as well as pre-check discounts for military spouses, as well as free pre-check for Gold Star families. Want to give those two a particular reference. If you have more questions on those or eligibility in terms of airport, Atlanta, or elsewhere, we encourage folks to go on TSA.gov for more information.
Sounds good. Adam Stahl, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for your insight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Coming up on the show, we're going to have a conversation about with the National Weather Service about the return of this heat to the area. But immediately after break, we're going to get deeper into these SNAP benefit outages. That's coming up after the break. Stay with us. Well, we've been tracking Georgia families struggling to access their SNAP benefits weeks after a systems outage. Now we have obtained emails between the state and the SNAP EBT vendor revealing tension between the two behind the scenes as we press both for answers. Consumer investigator Liza Lucas is digging into those records for us. Liza, what have you found so far?
Good morning, Chesley. Well, both sides seem to be on the same page that on July 28th, so a month from now, a surge of calls flooded the call center, which is the resource for families to check their benefits. Now, the emails we got our hands on through open records request show the conflict between DHS leaders and Conduit. That is the company that runs Georgia's EBT card system. Now, at the heart of that tension is whether this constitutes a cyber attack. So the state suspected a cyber attack from the start, describing the incident to 11Alive as bots trying to access account information. Conduit's public statement to 11Alive actually seemed to downplay that event, but these newly revealed emails from the vendor to the state ultimately point to this as a brute force attack. So we turn to cyber expert Patrick Kelly to explain that nuance. Take a listen. Brute force attack, what are we talking about there?
Yeah, so how that works is, you have a system that can, answer so many requests per minute, right? And you just keep trying usernames and passwords, you keep calling it over and over again. And the goal is, on one hand, if we're trying to brute force a username and a password, that eventually we'll guess the right password and the username and we'll gain access to a system.
And Chesley, if you gain access to account info, it's not hard to surmise that we know that those criminals can take that info and then steal or drain those SNAP funds, which per the back and forth we've seen in these emails is what drove state leaders' concern.
All right, so in the middle of this fight, families are left without their access. How does that happen?
Exactly. So walking you through what happened, we know and we have previously reported that ultimately the state made the call to shut down that call center. Again, that was kind of the phone line that families really depended on to check on their benefits. Meanwhile, we know thousands of cards were also locked in order to prevent thieves from getting their hands on that money as the situation all unfolded. Now, in order to unlock those cards, you had to have a special app. And we have previously reported that only a small percentage, it was like 6% back in the spring, that's how many people were already using this app. So you can imagine how easily it happened that people were getting these locked cards, unable to unlock them and unable to access their benefits. At the same time, we learned that more than 45,000 cards were replaced. You factor in the time that it takes to get those cards in the mail. And then there were additional problems with activating those new cards because, again, people couldn't use the helpline to call the vendor and they didn't have the app to activate it.
So you've been talking to these people. What were they expressing to you, Liza?
Chesley, every day I get emails. I have an inbox this morning more emails coming in. People still cannot get in touch with the vendor. This happened July 28th, so we're more than a month out from when this outage occurred. And this has really been a problem for people. And just to kind of quantify it, it's been difficult because we know that tens of thousands of cards were either locked or reissued, but every one of those cards is not a single individual. This could be an entire family. We're talking about grandparents raising grandchildren.
Right.
We're talking about single moms who have children to feed. We're talking about some who have disabilities and have no way to go and make up this income. So this has been a huge hardship on families. This has also been huge in terms of frustration because people just want someone on the phone that they can talk to who can provide answers, and they've not gotten that.
Yeah, it seemed like they would have had a plan before they did this plan to set people up, to get access. So what is the state doing now about it?
Well, we have been pressing for more information. We know that a third party was supposed to be conducting an investigation. I've reached out to Conduit for the updates on that investigation. They continue to point to their original statement, which basically said that this spike in call volume that initiated all this in the first place, it happens all the time when it comes to these call centers. The state has been fairly quiet as of late, so we're going to keep pressing for answers as this all unfolds. I know they have to keep some things tight to the vest because we're talking about criminals trying to steal money here, but we're going to keep pushing for answers as we keep hearing from families who are still having these problems.
Wow. Liza, thanks so much for that insight. I really appreciate that. And yeah, keep coming back and let us know how this all unfolds. Really appreciate it. All right, you can see Liza's full investigation tonight on 11 Live News and on 11 Live Plus. And if you have a tip that you want Liza to investigate, you can call her at 404-873-9111. That's that number right there on your screen. Or you can email her at investigates@11alive.com. All right, looking at the weather, it looks nice on the outside. Looking at Midtown, Abidot Stadium right there in the foreground. It looks nice, right? We got the sunshine out there, and lately we've been on the cool side, but we know that heat is coming back to us. Oh boy, man, we know that temperatures should be higher this time of year, and we've been, and I said it earlier, we've been blessed, right, to enjoy an early fall, if you will, or fall-like temperatures, and now that heat is coming back. So we bring in Dylan Lusk. He's a senior forecaster with the National Weather Service based there in Peachtree City. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
All right, 90s coming back. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, like you said, it's been pretty nice the past couple of days, and really it's been nice for a little while now out there. We've had those temperatures that are more seasonable to even a little on the cool side, but unfortunately it looks like starting today, things are going to start to heat back up, especially across the metro. So for today's forecast, we've got highs that are going to get up into the mid to upper 80s. I won't even rule out that on the south side of the metro, especially, we could see a couple of 90s out there. And then as we go into the weekend, so tomorrow and Friday and Saturday, it looks like we're going to have 90s that are going to be widespread across the area. So summer's coming back, or at least it's going to visit us one last time here.
Yeah.
It's not done with us.
Not yet, not yet. Although if we look a little further out, we know we have another front that's going to come through and cool us back down again as we head into next week. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, correct. It looks like this is going to be kind of a brief little visit, fortunately. As we go into Saturday night especially, and then through the day on Sunday, we'll have a cold front that's going to kind of very slowly slide across the area. It'll be one of those situations where if you're to the south of that front, the temperatures are going to stay in the 90s, but if you're to the north of that front, temperatures are going to start to cool down again into the 70s. And as we get into Monday next week, it looks like that front should push all the way through us, and we've got forecast highs again in the upper 70s for Atlanta and parts of the metro. So again, looks like we might be cooling back down once again, thankfully.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. I love this. This is feeling really good. Dylan, we looked at, we started out August on the cool side, right? Now we're starting to see the heat come back a little. We started heat come back a little bit middle of August, and then we cooled down once again. Talked about how rare that is for August here in Atlanta.
It's definitely an interesting August for sure, just with how the kind of weather patterns and stuff ended up setting up. You nailed it exactly. We actually had some really cool temperatures to start off August. We had a day that was, we actually had a high of 68, 69 at Atlanta in early August, which is quite low for that time of year. It wasn't quite a record, but it was getting close. As we got into the middle of the month, it got warmer again, and then we got cooler again. So when you put it all together, we actually ended up being pretty average overall if you look at the whole month. in terms of like ranking at the Atlanta airport, we've got about 150 years, give or take a couple of years worth of data there. And ranking wise, we came out about 73rd, tied for 73rd in terms of like our average temperature over the course of the month. So almost right smack dab in the middle average for everything. So while it was kind of a month of extremes, so to speak, in terms of that heat and the coolness, it ended up balancing out in the end.
Yeah. Real quickly here, I got about 40 seconds with you. Talk to me about the hurricane season real quick. Kind of lackluster, right? When we think about it now, as we start to approach the peak of hurricane season.
Yeah, it's quiet out there right now for sure. What we always like to remind people is that as we go into September, exactly like you said, this is the peak. This is when things can certainly take off. This is when we traditionally would see the most kind of storms start to form and things like that. We do have an area we're keeping an eye on currently it's well away from the U.S. right now, out in the Atlantic Ocean, but it's the time of year, and so we could see some development here in the next couple of days of something like that into what could be our next name system overall. But the biggest thing with the hurricane season is regardless of whether or not it ends up being above average, below average, anything like that, we always like to remind folks, it only takes one, as we saw last year with a hurricane like Helene or something like that.
Right.
It only takes one hurricane to have tremendous impacts across an area. So don't let your guard down or anything like that just because the season seems like it might be quiet.
Absolutely. Meteorologist Lynn Lusk, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate all your insight.
Thank you.
All right. On the other side of this break, we're going to talk to Maribel Aber with CNN about how your money matters. We're back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Tariffs are in the spotlight once again. This time, the Supreme Court is getting involved. CNN's Maribel Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Hello, Maribel. Sounds like
hello, Chesley.
Yeah, sounds like we're brewing up for a major trade fight here.
Does it ever? President Trump is asking the Supreme Court to quickly hear his appeal on tariffs. A lower court recently ruled Trump overstepped his authority in rewriting U.S. trade policy. Normally, the Supreme Court could take as long as early next summer to issue a decision, but the White House is asking for a much quicker review, saying the lower court ruling is already hurting trade negotiations. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says waiting until next summer for a Supreme Court ruling could result in the U.S. having to unwind as much as $1 trillion in collected tariffs. The lower court posits ruling from taking effect until October 14th. So that gives the White House time to ask the Supreme Court to hear the appeal. Chesley.
All right, thanks a lot, Maribel. Now, when you start to see these now hiring signs vanish, that looks like the fewer jobs are going to be on the market board. Talk to me about it.
It was kind of a big surprise, Chesley. The number of job openings in the U.S. have fallen to levels seen during the pandemic. There were 7.18 million listings in July, according to the Labor Department. It's only the second time the figure has come in below 7.2 million since the end of 2020. It was also below the 7.4 million job openings that economists have been forecasting. So the report is seen as another sign of a slowing labor market and comes ahead of tomorrow's August employment report. So we'll be watching that one closely, Chesley.
All right, will do. Netflix has given us a new way to spread our favorite moments. What's up with that?
Okay, so Netflix is updating its Moments feature. So Moments lets users customize and share clips on their mobile devices. With the update, viewers can choose a start and end point on clips to save and share. There will be a clip option on the screen that lets you adjust the length of a segment. And then after it's clipped, the video will save to your My Netflix tab where you can rewatch it or share it. This update comes as Netflix is revamping its brand. The streaming giant has a redesigned homepage. There's a vertical video feed on mobile devices that looks similar to TikTok. I'm not sure how I feel about this one, Chesley, but I will say this idea is kind of genius. Netflix gets data on what we really want to watch and rewatch. It's kind of like free advertising.
Yeah, right about that. All right, this is the one I've been waiting for here. The NFL season kicks off tonight right here on NBC and then ends with the Super Bowl 60 right here on the same network. And we're already scoring big, right?
We are. The NFL season gets underway tonight, and NBC says ad spots for next February's Super Bowl already sold out, Chesley. NBC Universal also said this season is shaping up as a record setter for revenue from ads and corporate brand sponsorships. NBC has already sold 90% of its ad inventory for this season's Sunday Night Football broadcast. The network has signed more than 150 partnerships with brands from a variety of businesses like retail and automotive for this season's gains. And spots on that February Super Bowl were reportedly going for huge money. Media reports say NBC Universal was initially asking for around $7 million for a 30-second ad. The spots then got as high as $8 million for 30 seconds, according to Adweek. And as for tonight's game, it features the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles against the Dallas Cowboys. Chesley, the demand shows that live sports remain the most valuable ad real estate. And Chesley, I hear you rep the Eagles hard.
Well, I mean, you know, when you're a champ, you know, and the NFL is very smart. That's the way you kick it off, with a champion. So the people want to see it. People want to see it, and I'm included. I'm going to be watching.
That's right. But what I want to know from you is, what is your lucky number?
7. 7. Yeah. The old Michael Vick jersey.
Okay,
yeah.
I got you. Let's go.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mariel. Really appreciate it. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to talk with the psychiatrist about how to cope with the pain as we continue to reflect on the tragic day at Apalachee High School. Well, today is being called a day of prevailing love at Apalachee High School. Instead of classes, the day is being set aside for healing and remembrance and resilience, raising the tough questions about how families and students and staff continue to move forward. With us now is Dr. Nadine Koslow. She's with Emory University, and she is also the past president for the American Psychology Association. Dr. Koslow, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, 1 year later, what kind of emotional toll does a tragedy like this one still have on a school community like what happened at Apalachee?
It has a huge tragedy, which is, I think, why the school is appropriately taking the day for very focused healing. It has tragedy on people. It really impacts people as individuals, the students, teachers and staff, families, but also as a community.
You know, we were talking with a young lady earlier who was involved in the Sandy Hook situation back in 2012. She mentioned that the scars are permanent. For folks like that, how do you help them live through the pain?
Yes, for everybody, actually, the scars are going to be permanent. And so part of it is providing them some acknowledgement of that, some validation, a place where they can talk, where they can share their memories of that day, of the people that they lost, how afraid they were, but also sort of how they've coped and how they have managed to move forward in their lives. So holding both the forward movement and the tragedy of that day.
Yeah, we've seen visuals, we've seen walkouts, we've seen memorials. How is it important that a community like this come together for the healing process?
It's critically important for the community to come together. When we have a collective trauma like this is, we need collective healing as part of that. And so coming together to honor the lives lost, to look at the progress that's been made in terms of school safety, in terms of attending to people's mental health and well-being, in terms of advocacy, and just in terms of, as you said, love within the community.
You know, teachers went through this right along with the students, right there together. Does the treatment differ for adults versus how it works for children?
Well, there's certainly developmental differences, and I think adults have sort of a bigger perspective on things, but there's so many similarities as well, sort of stress disorder reactions, whether that's acute stress, sort of a shorter term problem, or a longer term post-traumatic stress disorder. We know both kids and adults can feel depressed, suicidal, have a harder time just functioning at school and socially, and that can happen for teachers and students alike.
Yeah, everybody deals with it differently. Does talking about it openly help with those struggles for everyone, or do you just deal with it on an individual basis?
Well, in general, we know that talking about it openly helps the large majority of people. Some may want to talk, some may want to draw, some may want to just be present silently, but being together and acknowledging the time actually is helpful for everyone.
Yeah, the school decided not to have classes today. Is that one of the better ways to prepare for a day like this and how they handle it?
Honestly, I was really pleased and relieved to hear that the school had made that choice. I think it's a very compassionate, thoughtful on target choice, it's very hard for people to concentrate and focus when they're having what we refer to as an anniversary reaction. And symptoms are going to be worse around this time of year. Fear is going to be worse. And so it's more important to come together.
Yeah. Amid all this sadness, what gives you hope when you work with survivors of this type of trauma?
So I think that in that situation at the Apalachee school, there were so many people who did so many amazing things to save as many lives as were saved. They really did come together in a very powerful way as a community. I've had the opportunity to talk to some people who were there then, and it was a remarkable coming together as a community. And so looking at the strengths they had that day, and then looking at what they've done moving forward. And their lives, children's lives are just so precious. And while that is really a scary thing and changes their sense of safety, there's so much good in those children and in that community. And that's what gives people hope to keep going forward.
Lastly, is there one message you would give them to hold on to as they move forward?
Well, I think that I think of our lives as like a picture, and that trauma is a part of the picture, but it doesn't need to be in the front and the center of the picture. There's other things that need to get added to the picture. Of course, that's harder for people who are closer to the tragedy and the loss, but there's so many additional things in life. And so both hold what occurred and add to the picture all the other wonderful things in life.
Gotcha. Dr. Casso, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your insight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for paying attention to this today. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right, again, stay with us right here on 11Alive Plus for our complete coverage all day from Apalachee High School. Our Ron Jones will be anchoring the coverage there later on today, and will walk us through what's taking place there all day and how the community is remaining strong as it moves forward. That's today right here on 11Alive Plus. Stay with us. We're going to have another look at your forecast plus my final take right after the break. All right, we are looking at the temperatures warming up. We are looking at temperatures getting up to about 88 degrees for a high today, 92 for a high tomorrow. So those 90s are coming back to us. 91 degrees by Saturday, 20% chance for an isolated shower or two. But then we cool back down. By Sunday, a front's going to make its way through the area, and we'll drop those temperatures back down to around 80 degrees both Monday and Tuesday. We're looking at 83 degrees by Wednesday, and relatively dry. Our chance for rain will be very, very low, but it is out there, so just make sure you're prepared if you happen to be hit by a shower. Hey, joining me here on the set is a good friend of mine right here. Mr. Falcon, how you doing? Freddie in the house. All right, so talk to me real quick about, first of all, do you like the heat or you like cool weather? The heat, not heat. He doesn't like the heat. Doesn't like the heat. All right, talk to me about the upcoming season. Very exciting. Got a lot of new players. What is it going to be like? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Well, I know what you're going to say, but thumbs up, thumbs down, all the way up. 2 thumbs up, all the way up. You're impressed about your new quarterback? Penix, he's going to do his thing, huh? Yeah. Got a game starting tonight. Season kicks off tonight. You got the Philadelphia Eagles, a bird like yourself, or the Dallas Cowboys. Who wins it? Fly, Eagles, fly. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Fly, Eagles, fly. You got to go with the bird. Got to go with the bird. What's the most exciting part you're looking forward to for this upcoming season? Is it the way you fly in, the food that you got at the stadium, all kinds of good things, huh? Yeah. My man, you know. And if you're a betting person, I would go with Freddie. You know what I mean? My money's on Freddie. Yeah. Looking forward to the season. This coming Sunday, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What's the score? 10 touchdowns. 10 touchdowns for the Falcons. You got it right here. My man, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. That's my man right there. That's all we got for you today, folks. Hope you make it a great day and have a good one out there. It's going to get hot. Make sure you stay cool like Freddie.